Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another video. My name is Naveed Husain. Today I wanted to talk about the importance of having a will. As Muslims, we understand that the Prophet ﷺ has told us that no one should go more than 2 nights without a will if they have anything to bequest. And I think that applies to every one of us living here in America. Not only to fulfill the sunnah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, but also as a practical step to make sure that our hard-earned money goes to our children after we pass away. So the way I like to explain estate planning is first talk about what happens if you don't have a will. What if you didn't do any planning, you didn't write any document, didn't do anything, never talked to a lawyer? What's going to happen in that scenario is that your assets are going to be distributed in accordance to American law. Standard Illinois law if we live in Illinois, for example. And obviously that distribution is not going to be in accordance with what the Quran says in Surah An-Nisa. The state is going to look at whose name is on the title. That's going to be the first question. So if you own a house with your spouse jointly, you each basically own that house 100% each. If husband passes away, it belongs to wife. Wife passes away, it belongs to husband. Okay, so that's not going to be distributed after you pass away. The second thing is whether or not a property has a beneficiary listed on it. For example, a 401k or an IRA or a life insurance policy. If it has a beneficiary listed, that is who is going to get that property. Even from a Islamic perspective, there's, we can talk about certain issues that relate to joint property and beneficiary designations. But practically speaking, if husband or wife pass away, it's not a problem. You don't have to interface with the legal system because now that other person is quote unquote the legal owner of that property, or they become the beneficiary of that retirement account or whatever else it might be. So really the issue comes in 2 circumstances. One is if you have a business or a property or an account or anything else that's in your name alone and no one else is involved with that property. So if you pass away, what's going to happen? We have to answer that question. The second issue comes when both husband and wife pass away. So maybe you did have it where you have joint ownership, you named your spouse as the beneficiary of everything or whatever the case might be. But now if you both pass away, what happens to the children? And the simple solution to answer all of these questions, to make sure that we are in compliance with Islamic law, is to have a will. And that's why it's so important to have a will. And that will is going to do a few things for us. Number one is it's going to appoint an executor. An executor is somebody who is appointed to gather your assets, to distribute your assets. Essentially, they're the quarterback and to make sure that everything happens after you pass away. They're going to be the ones interfacing with the state, with the court, and a lawyer if need be. So it's very important that we choose somebody that we trust. Second is going to be the actual distribution. So we can use a will to denote exactly how we want our assets to be distributed. And this will override the state law. So we can use the Islamic fractions. We can use whatever we want in our will and distribute our property however we please. But one thing to understand is that titling and the beneficiary designation is going to override whatever we write in the will. Third is going to be funeral and burial rights, so to make sure that we are buried in an Islamic manner, our funeral is done in an Islamic manner, and this is very important for people who don't come from Muslim families. Fourth, and finally, and this is actually very, very important, is we can use the will to appoint a guardian. Okay, and a guardian is someone who is going to have the physical and legal custody of your child if husband and wife pass away. So again, it's very important that we pick somebody who shares our values, who shares our principles, and we don't want a court or a judge determining who is going to end up taking care of our children. We should make that choice during our life. So without a doubt, every single Muslim should have a will. Now, there's a few other documents that I recommend. For example, a financial power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney. This comes into place if you have some type of incapacity, you're unable to make decisions on your own. This document would appoint somebody to make those healthcare and financial decisions for you. Most attorneys will have kind of a standard package, and really for us, level 1 standard package is going to be that will, and it's going to be those 2 powers of attorney. The next thing is to understand how the will works practically speaking. So what happens when somebody passes away is that the executor has to take that will to court. Okay, and so they're going to go to court, they're going to submit that will, They're going to appear in front of a judge. The judge is going to review the will, make sure that everything looks good, and says, okay, come back in 6 months or 1 year and prove to me that everything in this will has been taken care of. And for the average family, that's really it, right? You have the will, you go to probate court, you go through that 1 year process, and it's done. Now the children are able to have the properties in their names. Is going to be reflected at the county level and all other levels as well. But for anyone who has multiple properties, or they have businesses, or it's going to be a little bit more complex, probate could be a very big hassle, right? It can take a lot of time. There could be fighting that happens in probate court. People can make claims in probate court. And so this is really where a trust comes into play. Okay, so level 1, we kind of said everybody needs a will, everybody needs powers of attorney. But level 2 is using trusts as part of our estate planning. Trusts are used primarily for 2 reasons. In our context, they're used primarily to avoid probate, meaning that any property that's going to be placed in the trust will avoid probate, meaning it doesn't have to go through the court system. Automatically, the day that you pass away, the very next day, your children or your beneficiaries will be the owners of that property, any property that's within that trust. The second reason that people use trusts is to protect money for the children. So instead of the children receiving the money outright, for example, you can have a spendthrift clause that says that somebody else is going to manage this money on behalf of my children until they turn 25. In the meantime, yes, the trustee can pay for their school, pay for whatever they need during that time, but once they turn 25, they get the balance and they can spend that money how they wish. I think it's very important that our community really takes advantage of estate planning, be it wills and especially trusts, because we can use trust to accomplish a lot of goals. The trust that we discussed is more to avoid probate, but we have trust that we can avoid certain taxes with, that we can use to support charitable causes. And I think the biggest thing that we can use estate planning for is to build endowments and to build our institutions. Other communities have really taken advantage of estate planning, and now their institutions are running, on its own. And I hope, inshallah, that our community can get to that point. If you made it to the end of the video, please like the video, subscribe for future videos. Inshallah, until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.